My name is James Hawkins, and I'm making this video to repeat a story that I've probably repeated so many times I don't think I can repeat it again, but one more time. I had a girlfriend that I've been dating for 10 years. We didn't have any problems at all. It was a really wonderful relationship. She became my fiance a couple years ago, and I started getting sick because I have hepatitis C, and my liver started hurting, and I started becoming a little bit forgetful. A lot of people were attributing that to my age, but at any rate, she decided to surprise me with the ultimate gift, the gift of a cure for the hepatitis C. And so she secured Blue Shield insurance for me at about $800 a month. She paid for a little more than a year. And her father began a process of finding a doctor that would be willing to prescribe the medications, Sovaldi and ribavirin, that was so touted on television as being the cure of hepatitis C. Well, in October of 2014, we went down and saw a UCLA doctor, Dr. David Krieger. Seemed like a nice enough guy, and we met and we discussed the possibility of having a treatment. And of course, at first he had to verify that I had hepatitis C, so he ordered a blood test, and I accommodated that by going down to the blood lab and giving some blood, and lo and behold, what I already knew because I had already taken 2 treatments was that I had hepatitis C, and now that he knew. And so we went back in January after my fiance had gotten the insurance for me, and with the insurance in hand, all we needed to do was get a willing doctor to prescribe and then see if the insurer would pay the tab. And so Dr. Krieger agreed that he was willing to do that. He wanted one more blood test done. We did another blood test, and then in February, I went back and saw him, and he gave me 2 prescriptions for the Sovaldi and ribavirin. Insurance had already agreed to pay, so everything was green lit. He had explained to me that this would be my last treatment, that there would be no other treatments because this was my 3rd treatment, and a couple reasons why nobody else would probably be willing to give me another chance at curing myself was because the Hep C drugs that they use are antivirals. They're deadly poisons, and I didn't know that at the time, but I've subsequently found that out. At any rate, they weaken your immune system to the point where you cannot have too many doses of poison before you die, or before you compromise yourself so much you'll end up dying. And so he double dosed the ribavirin and regular dosage on the Sovaldi, and he told me to come back and see him in 5 weeks. In the interim, my fiance had shelled out another $5,000 for a copay, and probably a couple $1,000 miscellaneous to various other doctors and copays. And I began the regimen, and almost instantly I knew that these drugs were pretty strong. They immediately, or within the first 4 or 5 weeks, started to affect my personality. They had my anxiety peaking, and I was very short-tempered. And so on the 5th week, when I went back to see the doctor for a scheduled visit, he had, I told him I was having difficulty taking the drugs, and he said, just hang in there, the benefits outweigh the side effects. You'll be okay, you're fine, I'll see you in another 5 weeks. And so I left, and already I had gotten to the point where I didn't feel safe driving, just in those first 5 weeks. And certainly by the 10th week, I was in no way capable of driving, and he had told me that it wouldn't cause any problems but lightheadedness and dizziness. Those were the only 2 side effects. And matter of fact, it was parroted throughout the office that this drug was so easy to take, and everybody was getting cured, and oh, what a lolly time everybody's having on it. And so at the 10th week meeting, I went in, I explained to him that it was very difficult for me to maintain the regimen, and he said, whatever you do, do not break the regimen. do not break the regimen, because if you do, the virus can mutate and become immune to the poison, and then you won't have anything to throw at it. And so I left his office on the 10th week with renewed commitment that I was going to somehow manage to take all these pills. 6 months, a 6-month regimen. Normally it's a 12-week regimen, and I'm double dosage on the ribavirin. And lo and behold, about the 20th week, I go back to see him, because after the second appointment, at the 10-week period, he told me to come back and see him in another 10 weeks. Not 5, but 10. So I went and saw him at the 10th week. That would be 20 weeks in, or about 4 months into the medication. And he had actually told me it would be a 6 to 9 month regimen. He would determine that based on the lab work. So I went to see him, and by this time I was having really the shits. I was psychologically in trouble, and I kind of knew it. And I tried to explain to him that I was almost impossible for me to put the pills in my mouth. My brain was telling me not to do it, but I was, resistant because I wanted to cure. And besides, my girlfriend had just spent almost $15,000 to $20,000 on me. So I leave his office with, again, increased, commitment to finishing this regimen and getting cured. And so a couple weeks later, my girlfriend had been distancing herself because my personality was changing, and I couldn't do anything about it. The medication was causing it. There was nothing I could do to compensate as far as get myself under control, because I was out of my mind. And so I went back to see him in July, unscheduled visit, to explain to him that I just had a big argument blow up with my girlfriend of 10 years, and we had never fought. She had been paying for everything, and now she's leaving me, seemingly, or I'm thinking that she is. And so with that blow up, she got so fearful and so scared of me that she called, she went to see a lawyer the next day. She never called the police, because she really wasn't that scared, but I called her ignorant, and I think that made her so upset she was going to pay me back for that. So she went and filed a restraining order on me. My medication was at her house. And so with that, I went to see the doctor, telling him I can't get to my medication, and my girlfriend's leaving me. Can you call her up and get the medication and talk some sense into her and tell her it's the medication? So I get to his office, and I was driven there by my roommate, Brenda, and I'm told by the office that Dr. Krieger had retired. And that caught me really off guard, because how could a doctor retire when I'm 4 months into a 6-month regimen of really dangerous drugs? And so I go off on the office. I'm just madder than a hornet, and I start screaming and raising hell and threaten to sue everybody. And Dr. Kwan, one of his colleagues, passes by and he says point blank, I'm not taking you as a patient or anybody else, any of his patients. I already have a patient load that's over, way too big. And so I threatened to sue him in a lawsuit. And so he reluctantly, just to quiet me down and pacify me, he orders my file, and he says, okay, I'll take you as a patient. He takes Brenda and I back into his office, and he explains to me, he's looking through the paperwork, and he goes, so tell me what's happened. And I explained to him what had happened. He promises to try and call Sherry to calm her down. And he looks at my labs and he goes, oh, you're cured anyway. I don't see why you're raising hell. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I just lost my fiance, and my regimen's probably broken and ruined, and my hepatitis C is probably going to come back, and you're asking me why I'm upset. Because my doctor retired without telling me. And so I'm looking at him kind of crazy, and I'm telling him things about the drug that he's denying are true. Like, these are antivirals, like they're polynucleotides, none of which he is under the understanding that these drugs are. He thinks these are new drugs that are safe, not like interferon, but they were exactly like interferon. They are interferon. And I've subsequently found out that they are so much like interferon, you might as well call them interferon. But this interferon ribavirin causes ribavirin rage. And so all the things that I was experiencing were definitely from the drugs. And so Dr. Kwan tells me, look, I don't know why you're so mad. You're cured. I'm not going to put you back on the medication. I don't have, I'm not going to rewrite you the prescriptions. Just you go home and calm down and think about some things. And we'll order another blood test in a couple weeks, and we'll see how the virus is doing, and you're probably cured. And so I went home, and a couple weeks later I went to have a blood test, and I went back to his office. He's got the new blood test in his hands, and he goes, "You're cured. Isn't that wonderful? We're all done with you. Thank you. Have a great day." And I'm telling him, "Yeah, but I'm still in a brain fog. I've lost hearing, and my eyesight's messed up. I can't drive anymore." And when I started seeing Krieger, I was working every day, 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. Now suddenly I can't work at all. And so Dr. Krieger, about 3 months into this, I'm explaining to Krieger how I'm going to apply for Social Security disability because I can't work. You know, I'm that out of my mind. Krieger doesn't fill my Social Security out. Instead, he ignores me. 5 times he agrees that he's going to do it. 5 times he doesn't. So I passed the responsibility and asked Quan if he'll do it. He agrees at first, and then he changes his mind. The second visit I came back, he goes, "I'm not going to do it." He goes, "I'll send you to a GP down the hall and let them do it." So I went to see Myra Ramya Malkiri. And she's a GP, and I asked her if she'll do my Social Security disability. She says, "Sure, I have no problem with it." And she gives me a checkup, evaluation. They bill me again. And lo and behold, 3 days later, I call her office to see if she's done and filed the stuff for Social Security. And she says, "No, Dr. Kwan's going to do it." Evidently, she got mad at Kwan for sending me to him when he was already accepted me as a patient, why he couldn't do it. So he is now agreeing to do it again. And so I've got this emergency hearing coming up for Social Security. He doesn't do it last minute. He does it at the last minute. His paperwork says that I can only work 10 minutes out of an 8-hour day. So he sees it like I sees it. I can't work anymore. The poisons that they've given me have rendered me useless. And so with that, he again tells me in August, when I saw him for the second time, Dr. Kwan, that I'm cured. And so I go home and I start researching the drug. I called Gilead. I contact the Board of Medicine of California. I file a complaint against the doctor once, twice, 3 times, and they open the case, close the case, open the case, close the case. The third time, it's opened now by Sedgwick, who's doing the full investigation on it. Their claim was, according to the medical records of Dr. Krieger and Kwan, I'm cured, and that I finished the regimen and completed the regimen. That's interesting because I still have 2.5 months of the medication in my freezer right now. Well, I've lost my girlfriend over this because I don't know why, but I did. And because she's ignorant, basically. And a 10-year, really pretty nice relationship, beautiful relationship, a lovely girl in any other regards, except that she's not educated too terribly along the sciences, and she has very limited capacity to understand how things affect people. These drugs, since subsequently I've done a lot of reading on them, they cause ribavarium rage. There's like 70 people that have committed suicide on these drugs. One of the problems with the drugs is it creates a situation with the patient that's taking them, suicidal ideation, which is what scared Sherry. And basically it's left me incapable of driving. I wrecked my Jaguar in December. The drugs are cumulative in nature, which means they store in the body. And so if you take the drugs for 4 or 5 or 6 months, it takes about that long to get out. I took the drugs for 4 months, double dosage, so they'll take about 8 months to a year to get out of my system. I am still under the effects. The hearing loss, I am told, is permanent, and the eyesight loss is, I'm told, permanent. They're not so sure about the brain fog in some cases, and in most cases it goes away, but there are cases where it has not gone away. And so I am left holding the bag with nothing, unable to work, lost my relationship, and basically I'm shit out of gas unless I get an attorney that's willing to help me. And so I would like to think that somebody here is going to stand up to the plate and do the right thing and help me sue these doctors. I have subsequently filed an addendum to the medical records, and I am hoping, beyond hope, that they'll accept some of the addendums that I put in. They're all legitimate, but I've been told by the the department over there that Dr. Krieger's records cannot be added because he's no longer a doctor. Well, that's funny. I didn't think he was a doctor anyway, by the way he took care of me. Gilead Sciences has told me that there was a warning out on the drugs. Do not prescribe to patients with any, even minor histories of depression. If you do, before the first pill is taken, you should have them consult with a psychiatrist and have the psychiatrist and the prescribing physician closely monitor the patient for the first 5 weeks. Not see the patient 5 weeks later, but closely monitor him for 5 weeks. This would have enabled me to finish the regimen. So I went back about November, December and retested myself for hepatitis C. My virus has come back. Dr. Kwan's mistake was not in re-prescribing the medication and sending me immediately to a psychiatrist. And my girlfriend really spent her $15,000 ineffectively, because basically she just blew her relationship. She blew my only chance at a hepatitis C cure. And so for that, I wouldn't mind including her in the lawsuit as well, just for your information. And so I thank everybody for their time. And please, if you can do something for me, call me at 818-960-2033. Thank you very much.